And this is Megan Delaney with the governor's office. It's about 8:35, so we'll get started with this call. First off, I want to thank you guys for your patience and flexibility as we worked through some of our technical difficulties tonight. So I will kick this over to Governor Sisolak, who should be on the line, and Chief of Staff Michelle White is on the line as well, and they'll be able to answer questions. So as a reminder, if you could keep your microphone muted until you're called upon, that'll help this call run a little bit smoother for everyone. We'll get through as many questions as we can. And again, I know some stations and outlets had multiple folks on, so if you guys could coordinate amongst yourself for some questions, that'll help us get through things a little bit faster and a little bit smoother. So I will turn this over to Governor Sisolak, who I believe has joined the call. Seth?
Thanks, Megan. I appreciate it, and thanks to everybody for being on the call this evening. I want to be totally honest with you. I woke up this morning excited to roll out phase 2 for residents in Nevada, and my team and the LEAP team and everybody put a lot of effort into this, and nothing today seemed to go real well for me. So then I got back to Carson City and found out that I potentially was exposed to the virus and had to take that into account. So now my team is all separated and quarantined and isolated, and we're doing the best we possibly can with the social media and the technology here. So I'd be happy to take some questions from you. We sent everybody the remarks. Hopefully you got them. I'd like to have delivered them live, but that wasn't to be today. So I'm happy to take some questions, so just go ahead.
Thank you, Governor. Another reminder to mute your microphone. We'll start first with John Sadler from The Sun. John, if you're on the line, please unmute your microphone and you can ask your question. A final reminder to those joining, please mute your microphone and we'll get to as many outlets for questions as we can. John?
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure
can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, Governor. Well, thanks for doing this. Hey, I wanted to ask, I know, I'm the first question, and this is, kind of skipping some stuff, but there were some things in the first phase, you wanted to see a downward trend before you would talk about moving into the second phase. So now that we're in the second phase, or we're about to be, what are some things that you're looking at before the state can take further steps? Do you still want to see that trend decline, or are there other things you want to bring in here?
No, absolutely. We want to see a continued decline. We want to see a stabilization in some things. We want to continue to have more testing as we've had. We set a record with our testing yesterday. Over 9,000 tests were completed. But we need to see our percentage of positives continue on a downward trajectory. We need to see a downward trajectory in ventilator use and a downward trajectory in hospitalization, ICU. So we're working to build the infrastructure to contact trace all of the cases, and we just need to continue in that direction.
Thank you, Governor. This is Megan again. As a reminder to those who have just joined, we had some beep in. Please mute your microphone to ensure a clear audio feed for folks. So the next question will be James from the RGJ. James, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, for the go.
Hey, Governor, I know I've asked it before. I'm starting to feel like a broken record, but do you have any sense of a timeline for the duration of, phase 2 and subsequent phases of the plan?
Well, phase 2 is going to be similar to phase 1. We're looking at 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the data that comes in. It could go a little slower than that. We could have to roll things back if data doesn't continue to come in the way we like to see it. Our numbers don't look good, but you need 14 days to get a sense of how these things are progressing, and we plan to take the 14 days or thereabouts before we move into the next phase and loosen up some more restrictions or make some more accommodations. But I don't have
Sure, but at least 14 days, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, James. As a reminder to folks, please mute your microphone. If it's not your turn to ask a question, we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. I know we still have a couple folks joining, so just please mute your microphone and we'll get to your question as soon as we can. I wanted to go next to 8 News Now. I believe Orko's on the line. Orko, did you want to ask a question?
Yes. Hi, Megan. Thank you. We were looking at, the different businesses that can reopen during phase two, including movie theaters and malls. In terms of the social distancing inside, we're seeing basically 50% capacity inside. I guess what other kind of rules or guidance are you giving for those kind of indoor spaces that will reopen in phase two?
Well, we're looking certainly for the 6-foot distance separation. Businesses are encouraged to encourage the patrons to wear face covering and, not have I guess, congregating, to keep people moving along, get them doing their business, enjoy themselves, help our economy, and be safe.
Thank you. If we could go next to KOLO TV, I believe there might be more than one reporter on the line from that station. So if we could have one reporter from KOLO ask the governor a question at this time.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello. Question, Governor Howard. And I'm seeing the list, but you don't include the church or the place of worship. What about the churches in this case, in this phase?
Yeah, churches were included in phase two. We've tried to work with the faith community. Churches will have a maximum of 50 people per service or per event that they have there, and we'll go from there. But they will be limited to 50 people and still maintain social distancing and social protocols.
So they can open in this phase?
They can open with 50 people maximum and exercising social distancing and other social protocols, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We will go to I believe it's Riley from the Nevada Independent or another Nevada Indy rep. If you'd like to unmute your microphone and ask your question. Before you do that, if I could just general reminder to folks, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. So if it's not your turn for your question, if you could please mute your microphone.
Hi, Governor. This is actually Michelle, not Riley. I wanted to ask about while we're seeing the rate of test positivity go down, and especially as we've hit those record numbers of tests, we're still seeing kind of a not insignificant number of positives being reported every day. Washoe comes to mind. They're at a record level of active cases right now. Are you concerned that we're still finding a rather, high number of positives here?
Well, I am concerned, Michelle, and I think, they've identified through some of the tracing in Washoe, some of these went back to some Mother's Day events and Cinco de Mayo parties that were held, and there was some spreading at those events. I expect to see more numbers as we do more testing. I mean, if you look back, Michelle, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, we were doing 800, 900 tests a day. We did 9,000 tests yesterday. So clearly you're going to get some positives as a result of doing that many tests. The percentage has gone way down of our positivity. It's down at 6.5% now. It was over 12. So to bring that down takes a significant number. But yes, clearly the positives are a concern of mine. That's why tracing is so extremely important. People need to understand it. I know I got some criticism for having going into quarantine myself today and going to get tests because and I got to make a plea here. If you know somebody who tested positive, go get a test. If you know somebody who works with somebody who tested positive, go get a test. If your next door neighbor tested positive, go get a test. If your next door neighbor's family tested positive, go get a test. The test is painless. It takes maybe 30 seconds, and that's the only way we're going to be able to stop the spread of the virus, is everybody that potentially could be exposed to remove yourself from that equation by isolating yourself, by quarantining yourself, and getting a test. That's what we're going to have to do to drive these numbers down.
If I could ask a follow-up, is there a point at which the raw number of cases would trigger you to maybe go backwards in these phases?
Well, I don't know if there's a specific number. The positivity percentage could certainly trigger, unless you're looking at a hot spot. That's something we could get a control upon. we're always looking at the numbers that are coming forward. And if there's an anomaly in there, if it's one day, it's something that you can look at. We had one day this week that had, quite a few. It was over 200. And, but that was one day, and then we came back with a couple of good days after that. So I don't have a specific number what it might be, but we're looking at the numbers and the percentages very closely.
This is the press conference.
Thanks, Michelle. We'll go next to the Review Journal. I believe Colton's on the line. Again, a friendly reminder, if it's not your turn to ask a question, please mute your microphone so we can limit the feedback. Colton?
Hey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you, Colton.
Oh, awesome. On the potential exposure that caused tonight's press conference to be canceled, can you tell us when that happened? You mentioned 5 days before, and you were at the Dieter Call Center on May 21st. Is that where that exposure happened?
I'll get you the information later, Colton. That's a situation that the tracers contact us, and, as they do their job, I don't, I'm at a lot of things, and I'll just leave it at that, out of respect to the employees and the people that were involved.
Great. Thank you, Colton. We'll go next to Fox 5 in Vegas. I think this is another station that might have had multiple reporters on the line. So if we could have one reporter from Fox 5, unmute your microphone and ask the governor a question.
Hello? Anybody from Fox 5?
Okay, we'll hold on that, and we'll potentially circle back to Fox 5 if they join the call. We'll go to News 3. Cody Miller, are you on the line, or someone else from News 3?
This is Gerard Ramallo from Channel 3. How are you?
I'm good, Gerard. How you doing?
Doing good. I hope you're
Good.
staying healthy.
Yeah.
A couple of questions, Governor. The first was a while back you had issued a travel self-quarantine directive. If you leave Nevada, you come back, you're supposed to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. Is that still in effect?
Hi, all. It's Michelle White, the governor's chief of staff. I just want to jump in here really quick. So the travel advisory was an advisory. It went out in a release. You're right, at the beginning of this process, and that will be revised this week and sent out to you all as soon as that language is adjusted. But that language will be adjusted before the June 4th reopening of gaming operations in Nevada.
Okay, and if it's not too much trouble, Governor, can you talk about the June 4th casino reopening? We tuned in about a couple of minutes late, so I'm afraid we probably missed the big announcement.
Well, we work, and I'm so proud of the work that Sheriff Senator Douglas Morgan has done on the Gaming Control Board and her team, the control board members. And I listened to their press conference or their workshop that they had today, and most of the companies have submitted plans for their opening. I think they're very detailed. They took every precaution that's possible, and I'm hopeful that June 4th they'll start welcoming people back into their properties with some changes. And I know Chair Morgan is going to be having either a press conference or a release tomorrow to deal with rolling out the specificity of those plans. What's going to be required of the various gaming enterprises, both the restricted and the non-restricted licensees.
Great.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you, Governor. We're going to try to go back. I heard a couple of people pop back in. We'll try to go back to Fox 5 in case they were dropped off the call and have rejoined. Again, a reminder, if it's not your turn to ask a question, please just mute your microphone. So Fox 5, if you've got someone on here, last chance. Okay, we'll move next to Michelle Price of the Associated Press. Michelle Price, if you could unmute your phone and ask a question.
Hi, Governor. I'm wondering, by allowing the casinos to reopen on June 4th, at that point, are we welcoming tourists back to Nevada?
Yes, we will certainly be welcoming visitors back to Nevada on June 4th. we've taken every precaution possible. I don't think you're going to find a safer place to come than Las Vegas by June 4th with the protocols that we've put in place, with the testing that we've put in place, with the contact tracing that'll be in place by that time. And we're encouraging visitors to come and enjoy themselves and have a good time.
Great, thank you, Michelle. We'll go next to Joe Becker from the New York Times. Joe, if you're on the phone, if you could unmute your microphone.
Hi, Governor. Thank you so much for doing this. I have a question, which is a follow-up to AP's question, actually, which is, do you worry? I mean, you're looking at all these metrics, and you're looking at essentially cases in the state, and you're trying to see, okay, are cases going up and going down, and you're going to adjust your phasing appropriately. But once you start welcoming visitors into the state, those people come and they leave and they go someplace else, and they really shouldn't have your data. So two questions: do you worry about that? And secondly, do you are you willing and ready to pull back if you start to see that gaming venues are becoming a problem?
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. You're up late to ask the question, and I appreciate that. Yes, we are willing to pull back if there causes any type of a problem, but we've got a pretty robust contact tracing program that's going to be in place. It will include going out of state with the tracing. It'll include notifying the local health districts regarding the tracing, and the properties have come up with some pretty good plans in terms of checking people out, both at the airport, potentially at the properties when they get to the properties, make sure that there's accommodations made for anybody that shows any symptoms or anybody that would potentially test positive.
But just to follow up on that for a second, you're looking at your state numbers every single day. Those numbers don't include visitors who come for 3 days and leave and go back to New York and hopefully they stay safe but might get sick. Like, how are you going to account for that?
Well, I don't know what you mean by how we're going to account for that. We're going to continue to test. If someone comes to the hotel and is any way symptomatic or wants a test, they'll be allowed to take a test. And, and then if we have to follow up on them in terms of tracing, we will follow up in terms of their tracing as they go back home. But, we welcome the visitors from across the country to come here to have a good time, no different than they did previously. But we're going to be cautious.
And this is Michelle. I'm just going to chime in really quick as well to build upon that. Governor mentioned contact tracing. There is a state notification system. We certainly talked about it with the states in the Western States Pact, where we have quite a few visitors from, and there are systems in place that certainly will be expanded upon in this new situation we all find ourselves in, to make sure that there is notification outside of our borders whenever there needs to be. But the Gaming Control Board, in addition to local health districts and the state Health and Human Services, have put a lot of thought into how to ensure that everything can be traced, understanding that there will be cases, and knowing how to converge on that and trace them is going to be the most important thing here in Nevada, just like it will be in every state in the country.
Great, thank you. This is Megan again. We'll go next to Joe Bartels, KTNV. Joe, if you're on the line.
Thank you, Megan. Governor, I read through your prepared statement and some of the timelines. For example, bars may reopen coming this Friday. One might say, how are these rules enforceable if someone needs to sit at a bar top or at a table that's at a bar and they need to be served, as opposed to maybe congregating at the bar top, for example?
The rules are enforced in so much as the business enterprises know what the rules are. We have inspectors at the county and the local authorities that are going to be follow up on these. And believe me, we get no shortage of people calling in with reports of people not following the rules. And if that happens and we send an inspector out, we're going to try to educate people. If education doesn't work, they could potentially receive a citation or risk losing their business license. And I don't think it's worth taking a chance of losing your business license to let somebody go up there and order a beer.
Thank you, Governor. And we have time for one more question before some closing remarks from the Governor and Chief of Staff Michelle White. And I apologize, Fox 5 is now on the line. So if you could, Kyla, go ahead and ask the Governor your question.
Hey, Governor, how's it going? Sorry, I joined a little late, so I'm sorry if you were already asked this question. But what about the travel advisory? How will that work with casinos reopening June 4th and people from out of state traveling here to go to casinos?
We're going to be addressing the travel advisory in the days ahead, the specifics as it relates to it, but we are open for business on June 4th and welcoming our out-of-town guests.
Okay, and my other question for you, also sorry if this was already asked, but the DOJ sent a letter urging you to reopen churches. What about that? Do you have a comment for that?
Yeah, I brought that up early on that we have reopened churches. It is to a maximum capacity of 50 people, and they will need to maintain social distancing and social protocols in the church. But they will be open to have their services and any celebrations they might have, or any whatever it might be, a baptism, a wedding, a celebration of life. But there's a maximum of 50 people with social distancing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I believe Chief of Staff White might have some closing comments, or the Governor as well, before we wrap this up tonight.
Well, I'll just
KTVN
give
didn't
a
get to
couple,
ask
and
a
then
question.
What?
KTVN didn't get to ask a question.
Okay, you have a question?
Yeah, in regards to the gyms, I know the locker rooms are closed, but the restrooms are open, and there are smaller gyms that are not allowed to, must keep the 6-foot distancing. What do you suggest that these smaller gyms do in relation to the fact that some of them are smaller and don't have that 6 feet distance right there?
Well, if they don't have the 6 feet separation, they can't open.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have 6 feet separation between the patrons.
And where do you expect people to change if they can't use locker rooms? Do they use restrooms, in other words?
Well, I guess that would be up to the person running the gym if he wants them to change in the locker room or come in their gym clothes.
Thank you.
Governor,
Thank
this
you.
is Jay Jones for the Los Angeles Times. Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Governor, this is Dana Gentry from the Nevada Current. Can I ask a question?
Oh, good God.
As a reminder, if
first
we
of
could
all,
all mute our microphones to clear the audio feed. It sounds like we might be able to take a couple more questions. If you could just mute your microphone, and we'll get a couple more. I believe that first one was Jay Jones from the Los Angeles Times. If everyone else could keep their microphone muted.
Thank you. First of all, Governor, I want to send sincere best wishes for your test tomorrow, that you get a negative result.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome, sir. With the June 4th opening, the big casino operators with whom I've spoken say that the biggest disaster that could befall them is if they reopened and then there was a huge spike. Would you concur that that would be disastrous to the state's economy, and what would be the specific steps that are being addressed? I know you said earlier the Gaming Control Board will have more information tomorrow, but what needs to be specifically addressed to avoid a spike given the opening up of casinos and the fact that patrons, for example, are not going to have to wear masks?
Well, no, there's a multitude of questions there, and let me start with as simply as I could. It would definitely be a setback if there were a spike, any type of spike. I think that the restrictions and the protocols that are put in place at the different properties are severe enough that I don't see that happening. I mean, with the testing, with the isolation for anybody that's symptomatic until they get a test back, and then if they're testing positive, they can be isolated at a property for the entire 14 days. The sanitation and the cleaning of the various issues that hopefully there won't be any spread from the surface. All of the employees will be wearing masks. The customers will be encouraged to wear masks, and hopefully they will do so. And there'll be protocols in so much as the separation. I know they had some input on wanting more people at a poker table, and we couldn't accommodate more than 4 people at a poker table and still have social distancing, so there won't be more than 4 individuals at a poker table. But I'm confident with the restrictions that are put in place by the Gaming Control Board, and by watching it quickly and carefully, we will avoid any spike or surge in our numbers. And if there is a problem, we're going to have to start pulling things back. But I don't anticipate that to be the case. I'm confident that it'll go well. And we want to prevent it, but until clearly, the only sure thing we can do is have a vaccine. And until we have a vaccine, we have to focus on our technology, intervening quickly if there's a problem, contact tracing, and avoiding being proactive in terms of our measures. But I'm confident Las Vegas is a safe place to come, and the visitors are going to have a great time in a safe environment.
Thank you, and
Thank you for that, Governor, and again, best wishes for tomorrow.
Thank you, appreciate it. I know I heard Dana
Thanks.
there, so.
yes, Governor, we'll
Hi,
do
Governor.
the final question from, I'm sorry, Dana. We'll do you as the final question, and then after the governor answers, we'll end the call. I just wanted to quickly tell folks if there are additional questions that the governor did not get to this evening, feel free to send them to me. This is Megan. So you guys can send it to press@gov.nv.gov or my email address if that's easier for you, or you can text me and we'll work to get you answers either tonight or tomorrow. So Dana, will take you as the last question, and when the governor's finished answering, we'll end the call. Go ahead, Dana.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Governor. Can you, just to follow up on the question about policing and enforcing these regulations, in a casino, for instance, do you anticipate that employees will be on the front lines of approaching people who are violating social gathering regulations?
I think that employees, whereas they do now, will continue to educate all of the visitors, all of the guests in the hotels on proper protocols, social distancing. If they're not, following what the protocols in place are, offering them a mask if they want one, that sort of thing. Yeah, I expect that employees will be there and they'll be helping. But understand, they're not the law enforcement agency. The Gaming Control Board is a law enforcement agency that's involved here, and they will be.
Do you anticipate
on
having people on location from the Gaming Control Board?
Without giving you the details of exactly what their plan is, Dana, because that would kind of give away their plan. Gaming Control Board is going to be very aggressive in terms of being on the properties, visiting the properties, and making sure that the guests and the visitors are complying with the regulations, and that the companies are doing their part to make sure that all those regulations are complied with as well. So the Gaming Control Board is going to be an integral part of this whole situation, yes.
Thank you very much, and good luck tomorrow with your test. I wish you the best.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for staying up so late. I know we had a New York call. Geez, it's after midnight back there. I don't know how you stay up so late, but thank you for joining me. Again, I apologize. I would have really loved to have done this in person and break this good news, because it is really good news for the state and for all of our residents. And I'm confident that phase 2 will be a success. And as we continue to show good numbers, hopefully we'll be able to do more and more as we move forward. So with that, thanks everybody for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.